This week on Let's Be Frank, we are talking about problem solving. This is something that came up just from conversations with some of our colleagues, and we want to just discuss a little bit of how we problem solve, why we should be problem solving, and in what context we can do it in.
Yeah, I don't think that there's one particular method or methodology to use for problem solving. I think everyone has their own preferred way. But what stands out for me in terms of problem solving is the actual act of sitting down and making a decision to spend time solving a problem. There are two distinct areas. One is when, as an individual, I'm trying to solve a problem, and obviously then in a team context.
Yeah.
How does a team then go about solving problems?
Yeah.
So what are typical ways that you think that problem solving should be?
Well, I know, so when I Google these things, there's always the kind of checklist and the way to do it, and there's that the ideal method, the identify, define the goals. I can't remember what all the steps were, but one of them was kind of looking at the outcomes, or what are the consequences of trying this new method to solve the problem. And I think that's quite a risky way to go, because sometimes you don't know, and we spoke about this last week, you don't know what you don't know, and until you've tried something you don't know if it's going to work or not. So something that we try to implement here quite a bit is come up with a solution, let's try it, let's see how it works for a couple of months, and then let's revisit it and see if it is working, if it is solving the problem we were trying to solve or not.
Definitely a very valid point that you make there, and so it also links up with some of the other things that we talked about, in terms of fear of failure, in terms of challenging the status quo, which is why we advocate, come up with an idea, let's get consensus about that, let's implement and try it, and then review it, and see where it worked, what didn't work, and then change it, or either scrap the idea completely and find something to use instead of that. What's really important is defining what it is. What is the problem that you're trying to solve?
Yeah. I think that's one of the things. It's quite easy to say that something's not working or that there is a problem, but it's hard to really figure out why it's a problem or where the problem's coming from. And then that's the part that you need to identify in order to fix it. So you can see that there's discourse, or that's one of the words that you're not supposed to use, conflict, or something's not working, but what is it that's not working, and why isn't it working, and then being able to address it.
Yeah, and what I find frustrating is the fact that people are very quick to point out what doesn't work, but then they stop there. It's almost like it's a little bit too much effort to think about it and come up with potential solutions or suggestions of how to solve it.
But it's also that fear of, what if my idea is not going to fix the problem?
Well, what if it is?
Yeah. So that whole concept of what if I fall, but what if you fly?
Correct.
Yeah.
I think if we sit and make a list and we look at some of the great ideas that came out of the team, where maybe they didn't even take themselves seriously at the time, but it sparked something and it led to something, which we then embraced and we implemented, and it worked extremely well.
Again, that goes back to our creativity chat that we had, where maybe one or two ideas can be combined to come up with something that really works.
That's why I said that there are so many different ways and methods that you can use to kind of elicit these ideas. What I would like people to get comfortable with is the fact that you have to think for yourself. You have to understand what the problem is, understand what the outcome is that you want, interrogate what it is that you know. And then through that it will lead you to, because people have a much better understanding, I think, of the ways in which they can solve a problem.
Yeah.
But document those, write them down, scribble them down on a piece of paper, looking in what are the opportunities that we can explore. That may not take you to a full solution, but it may bring you closer to that solution. And kind of go through that loop a few times. When we're doing it in a team context, I think if people are just a little bit more comfortable in terms of doing some thinking for themselves, people will get used to and get comfortable with the idea of verbalizing potential solutions. And that can definitely lead to overcoming or to finding the best possible solution going forward. But nothing is final. Whenever we come up with a solution, we review it. And we see where we can improve. I don't think in the history of mankind there was a solution presented to a problem that version 1 still stands.
So then how should our team go about bringing their solutions to the table? Or so at what point should they involve other people? So we're asking people to think for themselves and try and come up with a solution to a problem. At what point should they involve other people in the team? And should they set up a meeting with you? Should they set up a meeting with me? Or when does that get presented to everyone as a trial?
In my opinion, anytime. I think it's important to first think about a problem for yourself. But I don't necessarily expect people to come up with solutions before they ask for help.
Well, I don't. I come to you as soon as I'm struggling with something, and then you encourage me to come up with solutions. So maybe that's a good place to start, is find that person who's going to tell you, have you thought about these scenarios and how you can approach it?
So that's what I try to do. Whenever people come to me with a problem is think of the questions that I would have asked. And then ask those questions, and that often leads to people coming to their own conclusion in terms of what the solution or what a potential solution should be. But just back to the question, people shouldn't sit and agonize or waste unnecessary time before speaking up, before approaching a colleague, and it doesn't matter who it is. And obviously there are certain types of problems that you would know this is the most likely person that will be able to give me advice, shed some light, point me in the right direction. What I would like people to get more comfortable with is the fact that don't just present a problem and expect the other party to come up with a solution. It's got to be collaborative.
I mean, this touches on so many of our things, because I think a huge part of it is fear and not wanting to be the person held accountable if something goes wrong or if it's not a good idea.
And another one that it also touches on is the communication. Is about just talking to people around you, asking questions. I was listening to a podcast recently where who is now the CEO or was the chairman of the board rather of a large corporation. He was appointed to the board at the age of 21 by his grandfather. And his grandfather took him aside and said to him, I'm not expecting you to fulfill all the duties of a director, but I expect of you to ask questions, to make sure that you understand. And that was a wonderful way of introducing him into a role which he eventually took over at the age of 29. So in his own words, he was doing an apprenticeship for 8 years. But just the fact that he was invited to the table, and then his only job was to ask questions.
Yeah.
To make sure that you understand. And that really stood out and resonated with me in terms of the type of environment that we're trying to create.
Yeah. We do try to facilitate that. I mean, our previous podcast about our structure kind of shows that anyone can speak to anyone and ask the questions that they need to ask. And our FiveFriday methodology, which we refer to as a problem-solving methodology, has that line about question everything, challenge the status quo. If something's not working, ask why we're doing it and figure out a way to improve it.
So that then begs the question, what is it that are stopping people from doing that? When as a company we allow all of that. We ask for it. We ask people to question the status quo. We ask people to, at any point in time, come up with ideas and solutions to improve the way that we do things. What is it that's stopping people?
I don't have an answer to that. I think the main one that I've already mentioned a few times is that fear of being wrong, or of maybe being shut down with the idea that they come up with, or being misunderstood maybe. And again, it comes back to communication.
I think it's a combination of all of those.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to get to is, what more can we do to help facilitate that, to help people overcome that fear of failure, which is so silly. I mean, I fail so often.
I try very hard not to, but I do.
Which is so wrong.
I know. Well, I'm not really good at taking risks because I'm scared of failure. So
and it's not natural.
Yeah.
It is not natural to fear failure.
Yeah.
And certainly the type of failure that we're talking about here, we're not talking about any life-threatening failures or something silly.
Yeah.
But people fail all the time. It's the only way that we learn. So I would really like to know what more we can do, and I encourage our team to come with suggestions.
One of the things I was thinking of, and we speak about this quite a lot, is that quote, fall in love with problems, not solutions. So reframing it, that problems are not a bad thing. And we spoke about this again when we were talking about a better you. Knowing where you're falling short or where there's an area you can improve gives you the opportunity to be a better person and to improve yourself. And it's the same with a problem in the workplace. Knowing that there's problems and being able to identify them gives us the opportunity to be better as a company. So looking at it in a positive light, problems are not bad. Problems are good because it gives us a chance to be better.
Definitely. I mean, isn't that essentially what life is about?
Yeah.
It's about continuously solving problems and continuously improving. Yeah. We're not just here
to do the same thing every day.
Exactly the same thing every day for how many ever years.
Yeah.
So in so many ways, it's natural for us as human beings to solve problems, to fail, to try again, to find a better way, and to improve, to continuously improve.
Yeah.
But I would encourage people to do a bit more reading in terms of problem-solving techniques. As I said earlier on, the two distinct types, and the one is where, as an individual, I have a problem that I feel that I should think about first. And then there are team-related problems. If we're working as a team and we're looking for a solution, how do we build this feature, or what is the best way to implement whatever it is, then it becomes a collaborative exercise. And in both cases, I think that there are so many different ways or methodologies documented already that people can try.
Yeah.
Discuss with their colleagues, discuss with their teammates. And I don't think that there's going to be ever only one that we select and say, hey guys, this is the methodology that we're going to use.
Yeah. Well, again, we're working with individuals and individual personalities, and they all have their own ways of solving problems. So we want to use that. We want to use different people and different methods.
And we want to encourage that.
Yeah.
We want to learn from people. I think that there's a lot for me personally to learn from understanding how other people go about solving problems. And the methodology, they may not even think that they're employing a methodology, but they are.
Yeah.
Just the way that you think, the way that you view, the way that you interrogate either the opportunities or what the current reality is that you're struggling with. There's a hell of a lot to learn from each other in that respect.
Yeah. And with that, this was Let's Be Frank about problem solving and a bunch of other things that we've mentioned before. And we'll see you next week.
Thanks.
Thank you.